Hey folks, in this video here, we're going to talk about graphing the trig functions we've been studying. Now, we will only be graphing these in using radians. So, in that regard, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about things that you talked about last year, actually. Okay, in this first graph, this is the graph of sine theta. Okay, in this case, the amplitude. Amplitude is how far it is from this mid-center line or this equilibrium line to the top. Okay, to the top or to the bottom. That distance there. Okay, the amplitude here is 1 because it's one space, either up or down, to get to the maximum or a minimum. The period is how long it takes for this to return back to its starting point. So for it to complete one cycle or one oscillation. Okay? For sine theta, it is 2 pi. The domain of this, okay, as you can see, this goes on forever. The domain is all real numbers. However, the range goes from, the y values are from -1 to 1. Okay? And that's our information for the sine graph. The cosine graph, okay, is very similar. This amplitude, okay, is 1. Okay, but remember that it starts, instead of at 0, the cosine graph starts at 1. Okay? So the amplitude is 1. The period is still, okay, it's still 2 pi. Each of these lines here is pi over 2. Okay, so we got pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. And it ends right back where it started. The domain is, again, all real numbers. The range is, again, between -1 and 1. Okay, and at the bottom of the page, that's tangent. We acknowledge that it has a graph, and that's all the more we're going to do with that. So, hi tangent, how you doing? Bye tangent. Okay, now, since we're not just satisfied with our graphs in this course, we're always doing crazy things to them. We're moving them around, we're sliding them around. Okay, sine and cosine will let us do something else. Okay, it will let us mess with the amplitude. Okay, and the amplitude is just, you know, how tall that is. So looking at this, okay, the amplitude of this function is 1. Okay. The amplitude of this function is 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one, it's 2. I don't care that it's down 2. The fact is that the distance is 2. Okay. Over here, this last one, the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did I count that correctly? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's 5. And that is wrong. That should be -5 sine theta. Somebody made a little boo-boo. Okay. Now, the period for these. Okay? So, we're just going to count these. Each of these is pi over 2, each square. So, I just labeled them pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, and so on. So, looking at this one, if I can zoom in here just a wee bit. Okay? So, starting here, that's pi over 2, and pi, and it's back to where it started. So the period on this one is pi. over here for this one. So this is pi over 2. That's pi, and it's back to where it started from. So the period is pi. For this one, pi over 2, pi. So it's back to where we started with pi. And for this last one, pi over 2, pi. Okay. So in all four of these, the period is pi. So basically what we're focusing here on is what does this number out in front have to do with the graph? Okay, and that's what it's asking for right there. Okay, so what does the number in front of the sine or cosine function have to do with the graph? Okay, well, what it does is, okay, it changes the amplitude. It changes how tall the graph gets. Now, what it can also change is it can reflect it in the x-axis. Okay, so instead of starting by going up like these first two are, it could start by going down like these last two. The difference is if it's negative, the sign starts by going down. Okay, so it could reflect in the x-axis. Okay, and if it reflects in the x-axis, we're just going to generically say it's opening down. Okay, so number 2 here. Again, each of these lines going across is pi over 2. They tell us that the amplitude here is, or looking at it, the amplitude is just 1. Okay? So, here I got pi over 2, pi, and I'm back to where I started from. So, my amplitude is 1 because it goes up 1, and to go a full cycle is pi spaces. Here, the amplitude is 1 because it goes up 1. The period is pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2. Okay. And I'm back to where I started from. 4 pi over 2 reduces to 2 pi. For this one, the amplitude is still 1, but pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, 5 pi over 2, 6 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2, 8 pi over 2 is how long it takes. 8 pi over 2, which is 4 pi. So, what does B, meaning the number in front of what's happening inside here, how does that impact the graph? Well, what that does is it changes the period. Now, how does it change the period? Okay, this is how we do it. Okay, it changes the period by taking 2 pi over whatever B is. Okay? 2 divided by 1/2 is 4. You can check that on your calculator. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1 pi. Okay? So at this point, we're now ready to take a look at next page. Okay? Now, actually, we're going to take a look at this real fast. Okay, like anything else, theta is our variable here. And since it's in parentheses, it works just like any other transformation. Okay? Because the variable is in parentheses with this, that means that C is going to shift us either left or right. Okay? But because it's in parentheses, it's going to be the opposite of the sign. So shift right spaces if it's minus, or if it's plus, we're going to shift C spaces left. So C moves the graph. Okay. C spaces opposite the sign. D, okay, if we go back, D, okay, because it's outside parentheses, D will shift the graph up. We'll shift the graph up or down the same as the sign. Okay, so if it's positive, you'll move it up. If it's negative, you're going to move the graph down. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have down here. We're only going to do the first three of these. Okay? So, we're not actually going to graph in the video. We're going to save graphing until class. So, orientation. Okay, that's basically saying, hey, is this positive or negative out in front? Okay, if it's positive, we're going to say it's up. If it's negative, we're going to say it's down. Okay? So, number one, the orientation is up. Okay? And number two, the orientation is down because it's negative. Okay? Out in front. And number three, we say it's up because it's positive. The amplitude. Okay? Remember, amplitude is determined by the number in front of the trig function. Okay? So in this case, in number one, the amplitude is 2. In number 2, the amplitude is 1. It's not negative 1. Okay, it's 1. It's not changed. The negative sign just tells you up or down. In number 3, the amplitude is 3. Okay, now, to determine the period, okay, if there's a number in front of theta, we have to factor that out. Okay? So, number 1, I have to factor out a 4. So 4 theta minus pi over 2. So basically I'm just going to divide everything by 4. So, pi over 2 divided by 4 is pi over 8. And that's really what we need to worry about. So I just copied this down here. Now the period is the number, okay, in front of the parentheses. It's 2 pi divided by that. So it's 2 pi divided by b. So 2 pi divided by 4, that is pi over 2. In number 2, there's nothing in front of theta, so we don't have to factor anything. So, it's just going to be, okay, and since there's no number in front now, it's a 1, so 2 pi divided by 1 is just 2 pi. Now number 3, okay, I have pi theta minus pi. So I have to factor out that pi. So I'm going to change this over here to be